Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, we better date stamp this. It's year 4, blog 3, or in legacy numbers, blog number 159, and it's dated 9th of March 2025. And it's been an action-packed week. This one's going to be a bit of a bitty blog. I've got my phone on rather than having it switched off during this blog because the distressing news is that on Saturday my mother was admitted to hospital. So, you know, I've always said I'll do a blog. You get one. But it could be on and off and all sorts of stuff and noises coming through, pausing, all that sort of stuff because of that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll try and keep this as normal as possible, but my mind is currently at the moment on my mother, and I'll talk about that in the correct section. But I look out the window and we've had some glorious weather this week. Sun's been out. I've managed to top cut the grass on Monday. I was going to do some more this weekend, but things have changed. I bought a new incinerator bin for the garden to burn some garden waste because certain garden waste, like pruning of roses and holly cut-offs, are just bloody awful to try and get rid of in a garden bin. So prickly. And I have to carry it through the house, garden rubbish, to get to the garden bin, you know, for disposal. So that's the reason for the incinerator. But yeah, a difficult week for me, but you know, you get these, don't you? And you have to remain sort of like chipper. So I think we'll get the news out the way and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So there's all more distressing news that's going on, mostly about the war. So we'll get that out the way. The war. Russia launched a devastating attack on Ukraine on Saturday, killing at least 14 people and injuring many more. 2 ballistic missiles hit the centre of Dubulya. I can't pronounce their towns and cities, unfortunately. The fire engulfed a 5-story building. As the emergency services arrived, Russia launched another strike on the same area. 11 civilians and 5 babies were among the 30 injured. Donald Trump said Putin was doing what anybody would do in a war. Ukraine is set to meet the US team next week to continue peace talks. This is on top of the news that Trump has reduced intelligence reports to Ukraine, which instantly, obviously, Russia has capitalized on. Bad move. I don't usually have an opinion, but that's a bad move, as shown by deaths. And to be quite honest, we all have our opinion on that White House talk. We all have our opinion on Europe rallying around Ukraine. A week later, we're talking about all the losses that have happened in Ukraine, with very few, if any, Russian attacks and victories. So yeah, you have your own opinion on it. I have my own opinion on it, which I keep away because it's just a date stamp. This, but I think everything that I just mentioned there was bad, wouldn't you say? Like I say, not much to add to that. Not much more to talk about really in the UK. It's some fluff stories in here that I mentioned. Media is mixed about Meghan's Netflix show, With Love Meghan. This is Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has got a Netflix show. There was so much debate about whether she should even do it, what people think of it, just from 2 really perspectives. 1, her position, and 2, just as a show in itself, you know. As a show in itself, there's several different opinions of it. From an opinion point of view, most people think she shouldn't have done it. I've not seen it, can't really comment. Not really interested in Meghan Markle at all. Even when she wasn't dating a prince and had her own show that she was well known in. I never watched that show either. So it's a sort of a fluff nothing story, but one that's worldwide as a news article because of her position, to be quite honest. What else we got here? The UK have announced the new UK entry for the Eurovision Song Contest this year. Yes, as always, the world turns, another year comes by, and another Eurovision Song Contest. I've not really ever been interested in the Eurovision Song Contest since really the late 80s. And I suppose you could actually say probably the last time I was really engaged was Terry Wogan's last commentary on it, because he did it for years and years and years. And you got to remember that pre-satellite, with only so many channels, the Eurovision Song Contest took up a huge block of hours on a Saturday, and therefore you only had 3 other channels, or 4 later on, for you to watch. And as a family, you continue to watch TV. So, yeah, you didn't have much choices. And so the Eurovision Song Contest was something that you tuned in and listened to. And I think of people of a certain age like me, we can still remember even the foreign ones, you know. Some of the tunes were catchy, didn't understand a word of what they were singing about. So there you go. Eurovision Song Contest covered. Oakwood, next one. Oakwood Theme Park in Wales closes after 30 years. Oakwood Theme Park is the largest theme park in Wales. Yes, it expanded. And then with COVID came closures. Then with monetary issues, financial crashes, it's finally bit the bullet and is about to close. I always wondered whether they could sell back some of the land and close it all off, but I dare say they've looked into all of that, and so there's not a lot more to say other than that'll be a loss of jobs, a loss of fun for a lot of people. I don't think anybody will buy it in the climate that we're in, so it doesn't have many options, does it? And it's always sad to hear it. This must be going on all over America, you know, theme parks closing down. So it's a nothing story from a certain perspective, but I still find it pretty sad. International's Women's Day was on Saturday, and it was celebrated by many rallies that were going on across the country. Yeah, International Women's Day. All of these different, I don't know what people have, but an opinion of, but there's a lot of these international days of something. You know, International Reading Day, International Women's Day, International Cancer Day, International. You know, I mean, there's a lot of them. Do we need a special day? To be quite honest, certain ones of them I think we could do without. Sorry, that was my phone. Just quickly check. No, it's okay. It's just a normal thing. I do apologise. I'm probably going to get a few of these interruptions. Where was I? Yeah, the International Women's Day. I'm all for a celebration. I just think sometimes some of them are a bit silly and some of them are not needed and they muddy the waters an awful lot. There isn't a day I don't go into work and they'll say this week is, I don't know, International Cheese and Ham Salad Cream Sandwich Day or something, you know, and I'm just going, what? You know, what's all that about? But, you know, it is what it is. And then the big one, I think, the other big one that this week was going on was the World War II explosive device found near the rail lines caused disruption to the Eurostar on Friday, and as many suffered cancellations because of it. Yeah, they found an incendiary device, stopped the whole of Eurostar, and of course then the whole media was filled with not only that disruption and as a news story, but then all of the sad cases of the people that were going on the Eurostar that day, like I'm sure you recognise certain charities like Make-A-Wish Foundation, people that are terminally ill, children that were going to go off and get to their destination to swim with dolphins or whatever they were going to do, and they were all cancelled. What can you do? It's a World War II incendiary device. It is just sad, and it's awful to hear about people that are terminally ill not being able to get over, and so forth. I just hope it gets, they managed to get the next one over, that they survived enough to do what they were intending to do, and that's all I can say really on that. I wish them all well. That's really the news and the war out the way. So we'll talk about my week, and it's like a way it started off like any other week. On Monday I had actually out the blue a nice sort of like conversation with an old friend who's got a channel, and we were talking about some of the output of people's channels and what we thought of them. That was on Monday. That was a constructive conversation at best. Everybody's got their own opinion about what their output should be on their channels. So, but it was very, very nice. It ended very cordially. We wished ourselves the best. There were so many highlights in it, about what we like about our channels and all that sort of stuff. And like I say, everybody's channels are about something. We weren't talking about much, to be quite honest, of our own. It was actually, I'll tell you what, it was things like, what do we think about other people's channels when they rant and things like that. And as you know, I don't like a rant. I have a little persona of a rant in my show with Ian, but it's a fun rant. It's like, what's all that rubbish you're watching? All that sort of stuff. Which I don't mean at all. It's just to make Ian laugh. No, we were talking about those rants that go off on one, in regards to many subjects. And there was lots of other stuff we talked about as well. It was quite good. I won't go into too much detail on that one, other than it ended quite well. Tuesday, I got the message to say about my physio, and that starts next week. So I'm doing a new 6 to 12 week course on strength and balance, because part of the stent operation on my heart has caused me to be a little bit unbalanced. I don't walk straight. I sometimes veer. So we need to hone in on core and, of course, more strengthening of my heart. So, which the 6 week didn't really cover enough of. So there's that. But, Wednesday, Thursday, all went away. No problems. Wednesday was lovely, and the fact that I got out the house, went to work, did some work at the office, spoke to a number of people, which is great for my mental health. And on Wednesday I had my talk with Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and that was wonderful. Another 4.5 hour blockbuster talking about just about everything, from films and TV all the way to how do you eat your fruit each day and your vegetables, or what's your favourite sandwich and so forth. It goes from one extreme to the other, and that's always fantastic. And we had A great amount of people asking us some lovely questions. That was great. But Friday was the bad day, the start of a bad day, which has continued to now. My mother came into my room at 5:10. She knows I get up early because of my heart. And she basically woke me up saying, shouldn't I have been up? And I said, Mum, it's 5:10, not 6:10. Go back to bed. She said, oh, I might do. And she went back into her room. And of course, after I'd took my tablets and got my toast and everything, I went into the living room and she was already up, putting on her makeup, all this sort of stuff. Totally disorientated, though. You could tell she was disorientated. She didn't know what day it was. I said, I'll get you a cup of tea. She said she'd made one. There wasn't one on the table or anything. I told her that she today was the day that she normally goes and has her hair done. She said she couldn't go because she'd missed the bus. And this was at 7:30 in the morning. And I said, no, Mum, the bus hasn't gone yet. You've got another couple of hours. Yeah, but I still can't go anyway because the bus service is at 10:40 and it's 11 now. And I said, no, Mum, you got a couple of more hours. Well, after a number of questions to her, I finally worked out that she thought the bus service was worked upon by the clock on our mantelpiece. So the whole town's bus service works by the clock on the mantelpiece, for which, I tried my best to explain that. But I said, are you still going to go? And she said yes. And I told her of my concern for it because, she's not walking particularly well either. And she said that going in, having her hair done makes her feel great. She looks nicer, her hair looks great, and it helps her through the week. So what am I to do as a son to that other than go, okay, but I'm concerned. So I sent a message to my boss to say that I might miss our meeting at 9, that we have every day at 9:30, because of things that were going on with my mum. And I did get to see about 10-15 minutes of that meeting. I managed to see my mother outside the door, made sure she'd got her purse, and, her walking stick and everything. And then I tried to concentrate at work, and it was very difficult. I kept going back to the window to see where she was. She finally turned back at 2:00. Now, if anybody knows about my blog and when I've talked about my mother before, you'll know that every 5-6 weeks she has her hair permed. Not permed, recoloured. And when you get it recoloured, it takes hours. But when she goes on a normal day, her hair takes about an hour to be blow dried and set and all that sort of stuff that women get done. And she finally came back, and I said, I've been worried sick, Mum, where you been? She said, I've been walking around town, done a bit of shopping. And I said, well, what did you buy then? So I could only see in her bag 2 particular places that she could have been. One was Greg's, because she'd brought back a sausage roll and a cake. And the other one, she'd bought herself a new purse, which she must have bought within the precinct of our town. We have these little cubicles. I'm sure if you go into a precinct, you'll know that you don't have to go into the shops. They have mobile phone holders and screen protectors. And she must have bought one of these from that. And it didn't account for 4 hours. I didn't get it out of her where she'd been. But as long as she was okay, it was fine. And she didn't complain that she was in pain. I'd given her some painkillers before she went off to make sure she could get around town, and I decided that I'd give her another couple of painkillers about an hour and a half after returning. So she took the first painkillers at about 8:30. She took a second set of painkillers around about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They're quite strong, so I didn't want to overdo anything. Friday then continued. There was a waffle that I did with my friend Mainmeister. Before I did that, I went in to see my mum, and she was okay. And after the blog, I went to see her, and she was still awake. And I said, Mum, you should be going to bed now. You've had a long day. You got up at 5:10. She told me she'd go to bed when she wants. She will be going on a sensible time. And for me not to worry. For which, what can you do as a son? You go, okay. But I do think you ought to go to bed now. And I insisted on that. And she said she'd go shortly. Okay. Now, we usually have a system here where I know that she's gone to bed because she turns the kitchen light out and the hall light out. Now, after about an hour after doing Mainmeister's blog, I went into the kitchen and the lights are out. I went to the bottom of the kitchen into the hall and the lights are out there. So I took it she'd gone to bed. So I went to bed as well. And I must have been very tired because I woke up, at my normal time, 6:10, but I decided I'd try and fall asleep and get some more rest. And I woke up at 9, got dressed. And then I do what I normally do, go to get my tablets. And after that, I went into the living room, and my mum was asleep on the floor. Now she said, when I was, because I was distressed, what are you doing on the floor? Where you haven't been there all night or whatever, have you? And all this. She made it out that she'd been to bed, got up, came down, felt tired, and fell asleep on the floor. Complete, utter garbage, rubbish. She'd collapsed. There was absolutely no way. She'd, not to be delicate or too about this. I mean, she'd soiled herself. And, it was very, very distressing. Sorry, that was another on the phone. Just bear with me. No, still nothing. I do apologise for the noise, but I'm going to have to keep checking. So, after she wanted to be left alone, I insisted that I get her up. Right or wrong, because I don't know whether she's damaged anything, broken her arm, whatever. But I had to get her onto the chair. And then I moved her from the chair to the settee. I got her a cup of tea, got her a piece of toast. I called my sister. She was going for her own medical appointment that day at midday. And I just spent all my time with my mum, and I said, please get some sleep, whatever. I'm going to monitor you. And I monitored her, and she just basically slept all the way through that. I needed to speak to my sister. I wanted to know whether my sister could help, because my sister is the person that would be best to get her a change of clothes, help my mum change into clothes. It's not for a son to disrobe your mother and put on fresh, underwear and so forth on. That's something that I find great difficulty, but might have to do in the future. I don't know. And my sister then did a number of tests that she knew, and we both agreed an ambulance. So we called an ambulance. They came and did the normal tests, blood pressure sitting down, blood pressure standing up, heartbeat tests, a blood test, a small pinprick blood test. They led her to the toilet. They got her a change of clothes while she was in the toilet. They asked me to go to Sainsbury's to get some special, underwear for old age pensioners. They're not nappies, but they're those tenor type things. I haven't a clue. I don't buy women's things, but I walked there immediately. asked a lady what to get, because I don't even know what size to get. They come in large, medium, small. I have no idea. And when I got back, my mother was in the ambulance. I walked into the house and it was empty. And then my sister came out the side and she said, "Have you got the stuff?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you coming with us? We're going to the hospital." I said, "Which hospital?" It was actually the local one, not the Oxford one that I went to. And she said, "Are you coming along?" And I said, "Well, I've got to secure the house. I need to find out turn everything off. See, you don't want to leave anything on." So I asked my sister to text me. And she said she would. So as soon as that was gone, I went into the living room and saw that the heater was still on. So I turned the heater off. So there's one thing. You don't want to leave the house with a heater going, a portable heater. I picked up all of the soiled clothes and took them into the garage. I made sure that this incendiary bin that I ordered, I made sure that was okay, because I hadn't lit it or anything. That was to be done at twilight. And I sent a text to say what ward, and she said she was still in A&E, but my mother was now being seen to. So I walked to the hospital, because it's just a small walk. And my sister and I had a big chat about a lot of things that were going on in our lives. What this might mean as well, depending on what the results are. And after about an hour of sitting around, my sister asked, "Can we go and see her?" And apparently she was just being wheeled into a cubicle now. So after 2 hours, we got to see her, and I didn't get to hear what the doctors were saying, but apparently she has got a urine infection, which in many people that are old, it's bad. In fact, actually, my granddad had a urine infection. He fell down the stairs. That's what started the nursing home. And eventually his whole life was in the nursing home until COVID came along and took him. So that's a distress for me when I think about urine infections. And there's a crackle on her chest, which means that they've given her antibiotics. In fact, my sister, what did she say? Trying to find it, because he did say what it was. Yeah, amoxicillin is what she's on. So, I mean, Google that if you want, if that helps you. And I gave my mum water, and we chatted and had a laugh and all of this sort of stuff. And then, of course, I got a message to say that a parcel that was supposed to be delivered for me was handed to the resident at my house at 5 o'clock, which is impossible because I was in the hospital. So that disturbed me. Plus, one of the things that my mother wanted me to do this week was get rid of the garden rubbish in the incinerator. And of course, when you get to something like 20 to 6, 10 to 6, it's starting to get dark. So my sister remained, and I came back home distressed because I wanted to spend more time with my mum. And I set fire to the incinerator. Now, what I didn't know was that I'd filled the thing with garden waste, put some firelighters and things in it. But I used cardboard, and this cardboard was coated with that sort of like really thick sellotape, like a red and it's sort of like a yellow and black stripe do not cross type sellotape. And I tore off as much as I could, but I used it as help with the fire. And the amount of black smoke that came out of it caused a bit of distress to my neighbours. They came out and they said, "Are you burning stuff?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've got to get rid of this garden. That's not garden furniture. You've got black smoke coming out of it." don't you know that we've got, you know, down here kiddies that have got asthma and so forth? And I said, I do apologise. I said, I didn't mean to cause distress by anything. He said, well, I reckon you got plastic in there. And I said, no, look, honestly, but I think it might be, I said, it's probably the cardboard I put in there, because it did have some tape in there. And, you know, she said, well, I'm going to call 999 and all this sort of stuff. And I said, look, I said, we're having a chat here. I'm apologising. I'll try and put it out. She said, no, I can't deal with you, arsehole. And then walked off. So, of course, what are you supposed to do in a situation like this? Because you don't walk off and go and get the hose while you're having a conversation, but you do go and get the hose after you finish the conversation. It's very rude. So this person went off to phone 999. I'm sure I thought it was as a sort of like a warning type thing to show her distress, right? And of course I was going to put the thing out. So of course I put the thing out and then went back into my home, and half an hour later the fire brigade turned up. She'd actually phoned the fire brigade. So they came into my house and they said, can we see where it was? And I said, yeah, it's here. And they said, well, I can see that you've got a hose and you've got it right near the bin, so we're very happy with that. The person that complained said there was black smoke. What were you burning? And I told them. And he said, yeah, be very careful with the cardboard stuff, because a lot of cardboard stuff does have coatings on it. And the sellotape would have definitely been part plastic, would have caused black smoke. But I'm happy to say that you had it all under control. You had a hose, and that's the end of it. Be more careful next time. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry that you were caused. They said, oh, don't worry, we get this all the time. But I came away thinking, what do I do now? I've just bought an incinerator bin, and now I've got the neighbours saying all this. And it's at a time where I've just spent all day in the hospital with my mum. I don't want to cause anybody distress, and I know that asthma causes a problem, but you have your own garden, and as long as it's garden waste and you're not trying to burn batteries and stuff, I don't see the issue. The only mistake I made was I didn't warn the neighbours I was going to light it. That's because I was in a rush from the hospital to get back. Now I feel I've got a problem with my neighbours. So yeah, that's another little problem, but a lesson learned. I mean, if I don't use it, I don't use it. It was what, 25 quid this bin. Lesson learned, don't burn anything in your garden. If that appeases the neighbours, fair enough. Like I said, I remember my dad burning stuff in the garden, and he always gave me the law, which was always do it at twilight. Don't do it during the day. People have their washing out. People are relaxing in their gardens. I followed all of that. I remembered all of that from my dad. I did it. Honestly, it was nearly pitch black when I was doing this thing, and I was around it all the time. And I had my special heat control mitts and poker with it. I did follow, like I say, all the instructions. There was nothing to cause that type of argument. Because if she'd have just said, look, my kid has got asthma, can you put it out now? I'd have done it. But she was more interested on why black smoke was coming out, and that I was lying and I was burning plastic and all of this sort of stuff before we even got to the putting it out. So, yeah, some people, I think, just want to have an argument. You know what I mean? And get their point across. So that's all I can say about that. And I'm just going to take a break because my mouth's all drying up. I do apologise that this one's going to be very bitty. But when I come back, we'll be doing the shout outs and so forth. So I'm just going to get myself a drink and we'll carry on. We'll be back in just a second. Thank you very much for bearing with me today. It's a very different blog at the moment.
And I'm back, and thanks very much for waiting. I checked my phone, nothing new at the moment. My sister will be arriving, hopefully, as I finish this blog. Otherwise, it's going to be even bittier.
So I'll try and go as quickly as I possibly can. And the next thing really is the shout outs. There's nothing more else to explain about the rest. Um, I suppose the disruption that yesterday caused. My sister came after she'd been to the hospital, so she'd been there a couple more hours. I'd fell asleep again. I'd woke up. She woke me up. And she said that was distressing. She'd never seen anybody like I was. I had the controller for the TV in my hands. I just naturally just drifted off. I told you it snaps. I just fall asleep. I must get this sorted at some point. And she told me the rest of the stuff that was going on. That she was staying in overnight. They had one more test to do. She'd had a doctor do a cognitive test. She passed the numbers test, but the memory test was poor. Take it like this. She knew that we had a king, not a queen anymore, but she couldn't remember what his name was. Yeah, Charles. It's you may think it's a minor thing, but you know, I've said before she doesn't know what day it is and all of that sort of stuff. So he's recognised, the doctor, the memory thing. Whether that swings anything for getting a daily nurse to come and see her or something, I don't know. But as you can imagine, when I woke up, I took my sister home. I drove her home. Told her all about the fire incident in the garden. Mental. And told her that there was no Amazon package. It wasn't at the neighbours. They would have told me over the other side if there was any package. I wasn't going to go round and interrogate them after the talk in the garden, but I did speak to the other side, and they said nothing was there. Nothing was received by them. So what I did was I phoned Amazon, and they've refunded me instantly. And they said it could be that they pressed the wrong button in regards to the delivery, and actually it was put back on the van, and it'll be tried to be delivered by Tuesday. But they'd refund me anyway, and if it does arrive on Tuesday, I can keep it. And that was very nice of them. I did tell them the reason why it could never have been handed to a resident, and that was because I was at the hospital, because my mum collapsed today. Maybe that swung it, I don't know. But they refunded me the 3 items that were in there. And yeah, I then had to prep the blog from 8 o'clock, and it took me till midnight to write the bulk of it. And because in my mind I said, no, I'm going to try and keep things as normal as possible, which is why you're getting a blog today. I've always said I'll try and do a blog. I want it for my nephew and nieces, and they need to know that this was going on in the past, and what was going through my mind when my mother was collapsed, you know, and how distressing it was to me. So it's another reason for getting a blog out. It's not just for you guys. It's therapeutic for me to talk about it, and also for my nephew and nieces to understand what was going through their uncle's mind, you know. So there you go. There was that. So let's get to the shout out, shall we? So all of these people, thank you very much. You know how much I appreciate you. I love you all to bits. I'm so glad you watched this. I hope you get some enjoyment out of it. I'm so sorry it's a bit sad today. But of course, you'll be getting more updates as we go along. So the shout-outs this week are to Martroid, Wee Bob Art, Colin Jones, a.k.a. Ponder, Denny, Robert's Retro Gaming, Raisin Gen 84, Steve's Gaming, Muckman Movies, and Carl Todd, which that one came through quite late. In fact, while I was sleeping until this morning. So I managed to get that one in. I was quite happy about that. And every single one of you, thank you so much. You're bound sure to have asked how my mother is all the way through your comments. You now know. So yeah, it's been a bad week from that point of view. God knows what it's going to be like at the beginning of next week with work and so forth. I've got my MOT Thursday and Friday. In fact, I've booked 2 days holiday for that. So yeah, I don't know. It's all up in the air at the moment. It's a bit distressing. But thank you very much for all your comments, and we'll actually get to the comments now. Might as well just let it all move forward. And these are in no order. The first one at the top is Carl Todd. Maybe it's because it is newest. I don't know. So here we go. It says, "Hi Del. First of all, I want to say that I hope that my question last week didn't open any old wounds when your answer touched on the subject of your fiancé. I would never want to cause you any distress." No, you didn't. Sometimes you have to think back. I tend to try not to think about it. That was at a time when I was in Manchester. It was before sciatica. It was after the breakup with my previous girlfriend that I bought my house for us to both live in and start my new career in Manchester. That lasted another 3 or 4 years before I got sciatica and moved home. Yeah, deaths are not nice. You can't even attend the funeral because of their religion. Yeah, it wasn't nice, but it's part of my history, isn't it? And you have to sort of like deal with it in your own way. For me, it made me think of the good times, actually, where, I met her and what we did and the phone conversations. Most of them were on the phone, to be quite honest, because she could only spend so much time in this country, and the rest of the time was in a home of Bangkok because she's not a resident. So, yeah, you think about the good times, And then it continues. "I hope that you and your mother have had a better week." Wow, you now know. "My week has been hectic at work, some things happening that I can't discuss here, but it caused a lot of additional work. Anyway, it's better to be busy than either being bored or have no job." Oh, absolutely, yeah. Always think along those lines, matey. What would it be like to just dwell on your own thoughts and worry about money because you've now got no job? No, you don't want that. "I went to see Mikey 17 or Mickey 17 yesterday, and I thought it was a lot of fun, but probably not for everyone. There is one politician character who was so over the top and reminded me of Trump, although it had been denied. I can't help but think that the director wanted this comparison to be made following the previous outburst by Trump about Parasite winning the Oscar." Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he did, didn't he? Some questions for you. Everyone here will know about your love of comics and movies. Thinking outside of Marvel and DC, there have been a lot of movies that have been based on comics, where the general public isn't aware of the source material. For example, A History of Violence. What movie would you recommend that are based on comics where the comic is relatively unknown by the general public? Recommendations. To be quite honest, I know a lot of them. I don't know which ones people don't know were based on comics. I mean, I think there are some that are obvious, like Barbed Wire. That's a comic. Men in Black. I think most people now know that was a comic. R.I.P.D. That possibly could be one where people might not think it's a comic or not, but it has so many special effects that I think a lot of people think it must be based on a game or some sort of like comic to have so many special effects in it. You know what I mean? Although saying that, you wouldn't back in 1984 when Ghostbusters came out thought that that was based on a comic or a game or anything like that. It was just a special effects comedy movie. So it is a difficult one. I've talked about Akira before, so we know all about that. V for Vendetta, I think most people know, is a comic as well. So this gets a bit difficult. Things that come to my mind. Old Boy. That's a Japanese manga comic. Old Boy. Yeah, very violent. Road to Perdition. That's a comic. You might think of that as being a comic because the cinematography in that, there's a lot of it in the rain. It looks very comic based from that point of view, but not based on its subject matter. Most people think when comics, they think superheroes and stuff. So maybe not. We think... science fiction Tom Cruise film, Oblivion. Yeah, that's a comic. It was only a 4-part miniseries, if I remember rightly. Was it Vertigo? Well, I'm not sure. But that was plants, the earth is devastated. Nothing grows. People live in the clouds type thing. Going old school, I wonder if people know that Jane Fonda's Barbarella was a comic. It's definitely set. I know that people know it was set on a set of books, but I wonder if they knew that the books were comics plus books. Not sure on that one. These two as well, I think you probably would know. 30 Days of Night, which is a horror type comic. And From Hell. Yeah, possibly. You know that one as well. I'm not sure. There's some there. I wouldn't say any of them I'd recommend. Old Boy I would. Yeah, Old Boy I would. Road to Perdition is a story you could get into. Oblivion, I think, is quite a nice science fiction because of the visuals, not so much the story. All the others, you probably know were comics. So you'll know whether those were any good or not, and whether you think that you'd want to see them, just based on the fact that some of them are horrors and some of them are action adventures. So you take your pick. I'd definitely recommend Akira, and all of that, Men in Black, all of that sort of stuff. But they're the bigger ones, and mainly if the bigger ones you're going to know, aren't you? Because, there's so many, isn't there? There's Aliens versus Predator, that's a comic book. There's, if I mentioned The Mask, Mystery Men, they're all obvious comic books, but not obvious comic book characters. You see what I mean? So, yeah, that's a good question. Anyway, you continue. I think I've given you some stuff there. Number 2, I saw the Star Trek Section 31 Blu-ray is being advertised. Yeah, and 4K. In my humble opinion, this is the worst Star Trek show that I've ever seen. Oh, the worst? The absolute worst. Atrocious. Couldn't believe I was watching Star Trek. What the hell? Swords? Bird cages in the chests of Vulcans and shit? Bollocks. That's what it was. I wondered if you'll be buying this. Or is it a step too far? Question mark. Right. No, I haven't ordered it. And it's the first time that I've drawn the line. And I'll explain why. I love Star Trek, and I've bought every Star Trek that's out, regardless of how good or bad it is. I've got Discovery, I've got all sorts, right? And most of them are steelbooks. Now, this is coming out as a steelbook. You see, you'd think I'd order it, but I did say at the beginning of the year I'm being very choosy. I think that Paramount or Universal that bring this out will over-publicise and overextend on that particular disc. and therefore it will come down in price, and it will be bargain bin within about 6 weeks. And at that point, I'll pounce. I'll buy it, yeah, for a £5. Will I buy it at 30 odd quid? Bollocks. No. And if I miss out, who gives a shit? See what I mean? I've had another little bleep. Hang on. Read out the rest of your question in a minute. No, nothing so far. Sorry for the interruptions. So you continue. As a collector, there is always a feeling of wanting to complete your collection. But is there ever a point where buying something you don't like means that your collection is incomplete, or do you need to have at least one version of every show? No, it's collections, and if I've got a start of a collection, I'll complete the end. It's a little bit like really big collections like Jason, you know, the Friday the 13th series. There was a number at the end like Jason X and that sort of stuff, you know, even with the Halloweens. And those they're known to be bad, but to complete your collection you need to have them. I mean, there's no good having all the way up to 8 of Friday the 13th and then not have Jason X and that at the end. You know, even Freddy versus Jason, which is again a bad film. It's 2 films that you just need to have in your collection to finish it all off. And it's the same with The Exorcist. The Exorcist 2 is awful, in my opinion. One of the worst films I've ever seen. But then you've still got Exorcist 3 and, you know, and even the latest Exorcist that came out last year, was it? When you think about it, you then have to have Exorcist 2 in your collection, don't you? Otherwise, it's stupid. You can't go Exorcist, then Exorcist 3 without somebody turning around and looking along your shelves in your collection going, where's Exorcist 2 then? You know, collectors in us don't like gaps. So last year I bought way too much. I wasn't choosy enough. I wasn't picky enough. So there are certain runs that I will buy even if they are atrocious. But there are runs now where I will be choosy and not have them. It's too much now. And you then put PS. When talking about your collection, I'm excluding different variants of each release, such as different steelbooks released by different retailers. Yeah, because you have to remember that I've explained that Star Trek the Motion Picture, they changed the picture on the front and I'll buy it. You know what I mean? And that's bad of me. But Star Trek is a bit of an obsession with me, probably because it's one of those first shows where I was so big on it that I bought it on everything, laserdisc, tape, video CD, the rest of it, you know. So, and it's probably the same with Doctor Who, you know. But outside of those two, I don't really have too much of an obsession. It's just the collector in me that says get it, you know. And if you're flush, why not? So you then say, take care, mate. And that's the end of your comment. Thank you so much and salute to you. Great set of questions there. And like I say, thanks to everybody that asks a question. You know, I will read it out verbatim. You know, it will bring out memories in me. My nephew and nieces will learn more about me based on my answers, you know. So thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. We get to Denny, my friend Denny, and he goes, hi, mate. Great to catch up last week, even if it was for a short while. Yes, he called, and it was at a time where I was getting stuff ready for my mum, so we couldn't talk for very long. Very interesting what we spoke about. Yes, it was, but then again, everything we talk about is interesting. There's never anything too distressful. We talked about the beginning of my week and talking about rants and things. It was interesting. Well, not a lot has happened last week. Been at work every day, and like yourself, too tired to do anything when I finish at 2 in the afternoon. Very bland and sterile week. Yesterday was my only day off, so I just relaxed watching my DVDs and had to go on a game in the afternoon. Back to the grind again today for 12 hours. Won't be until Thursday that I'm off again. Yeah. So you're writing that backwards, and you know that what you did on that Thursday as well. 12 hours, bloody long time, matey. Playing on a game, good for you. I wish I'd played more games this week. All I did really was play my friends request game. I haven't even been on my Kingdom Come. It's been a very tiring and distressful week for me. I'll try and get back to normal, but at least I got my friends request game done, and that made me happy. I did manage to watch the 2 new episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Absolutely brilliant. But the CGI was absolutely bloody awful. Did they let the students loose on that or what? Yeah, I've watched that. I did watch the Daredevil Born Again. I haven't actually mentioned that on things I've watched, to be quite honest. I found it to be not so good as the Netflix, but still class. I mean, it's a class difference to some of the stuff Disney Marvel have brought out. My God, some of the stuff. I didn't get on with things like Moon Knight and stuff like that. Some people loved it. I didn't. Wow, good for you, you know. But there's been some stuff there in the TV section that I've gone, why? Why have you done this? What benefit is there in this? You know, I can understand some. I didn't dislike, but didn't like either the new Wanda. You know, the second season of Wanda, I found it to be very pedestrian. Started off well, I thought, ended pedestrian. You know, it was at the time when The Penguin was coming out, which was a far more classier show, but a far easier task to make good, if you see what I mean, because it's mostly mafia, Goodfellas type storytelling compared to phantasm type show with Easter eggs to appease the fans. Do you know what I mean? And fit it in with the movies. You know, it's all that multiverse bollocks, you know. So yeah, glad to receive my Doctor Who Season 7 box set. Seems there's been a few grumbles about the quality of the restored episodes, as I gather they have tried a new method from what they did before. That one shot of the Doctor's hands being blue is rather concerning. I looked at that. I thought they were grey. I haven't looked at my own copy. You'll see it's still sealed, so I don't know. But you showed me a picture earlier, and I'm very appreciative that you showed me it. And it looks very much like they have used a different process, because when you're colouring in a black and white episode or restoring, they do it frame by frame. You know, they set the colour, and the computer does all of the changes that are across the board. It must have missed the hands, and the hands didn't, you know, from the picture look grey. That seems to point to me that it didn't pick up upon the fact that this particular pixel depth of colour of black and white meant that it should have been pink. You see what I mean? And it missed it. Yeah? So it looks like he's got gloves on. But you can see they're not, because he's got a ring on his finger. And you can clearly see the ring. So it's definitely a colorization issue. So yeah. We've all been waiting for that season 7. It's one of the strongest Doctor Who seasons you'll ever come across. It is possibly my favourite of all Doctor Who's season 7. But probably because of Inferno. But it's a strong season anyway. So yeah, it's a strange one in the fact that we've lost certain episodes in that season, and they've had to colorize them. They've colorized them before, by the way, but from what I can tell, most people are happy with the restoration. Just a couple of little blemishes that people have picked up. We're all picky, aren't we? Especially about classic shows, that we want them to be the best. So this one is highly anticipated, so I get it. Question for this week is, what's the best TV or film you've seen that's undergone a restoration? Oh, wow. I know which ones in my collection are the best. I mentioned it last year that I couldn't believe the quality of North by Northwest. That's got to be one of the top restorations I've ever seen, North by Northwest, and one of my favourites. So I was over the moon about that restoration. But talking of the moon, one that my friend Ian won't be happy with, but one of the first discs I bought for my 4K TV and my 4K player was 2001: A Space Odyssey. And oh man, does that pop on my OLED TV. Oh, it's just fantastic. You just thought to yourself, you've got to mention in a YouTube video a reference disc, and 2001 was one of my reference discs to mention. Two others that come to mind. Wizard of Oz. Yeah, that's a fantastic restoration. That's possibly because of the colours. Remember, we're talking HDR is high dynamic range, and it's more to do with the colour accuracy. And the Wizard of Oz is based in a fantasy land with a yellow brick road and all that sort of stuff. So, of course, it pops like mad. Another one is Goodfellas. They did a fantastic, I think, restoration 2 years ago of that film. But the set of films, they brought it out in a 50-year box set. It's absolutely gorgeous restoration. What else comes to mind? Jaws. Yeah, that was a great restoration. I think most people turned around and were very happy on how Jaws came out. Oh, there's probably many more, but I've got some there that I think North by Northwest is easily my favourite restoration currently. Do you know what I mean? I will say currently. They come out all the time. And let's just be honest about this here. There are many ways that they do a restoration. I love the ones where they go back to the negative and start from scratch, rather than trying to clean up what was previously done and listed as a pristine restoration. That's going over the top digitally. When you go back to the negative, you're getting rid of the scratches and everything from scratch. You're passing it through a scanner, a new resolution that's higher. So I prefer them from scratch. And Denny was the one who put onto me that 20th Century Fox have nearly completed and will be releasing this year the first 5 Planet of the Apes films, which is an instant buy for me. Whenever I'm going to see the pre-order for that, don't care what the price is, that would be one I'll buy. And let's just hope they do a great job. I'm not quite sure about 20th Century Fox and their restoration process. Most of the stuff that I've mentioned there were Warner Brothers. I do apologise. You might have heard the bleep. Just checking. No, still nothing. Bloody hell. It's all Facebook crap. And I do apologise if I say that. Somebody's trying to get in touch with me, but I'm waiting for an important bleep from a sister. So I might be talking not nice stuff when I don't mean it. You continue pass on my best to your mother, and of course I'll do that. Thank you very much, Denny. Hope I've given some there. There's bound sure to be many others, but always remember that a restoration is better than nothing, isn't it? And even if it's not the best, because there are others that I probably could mention. They're mostly going to be biblical things, though, like the 10 Commandments. That was a heck of a restoration. My God. In fact, if you go and see Movie Guy, who's an ex-projectionist, he'll tell you anything that was done in VistaVision generally comes out really well. So if that helps you, look out for titles that were done in VistaVision. Type VistaVision into Wiki, see what the films are, then have a look to see whether there's a 4K release of it. Bet you any money that most people have gone, whoa, what a restoration that was. There you are. So we continue to my friend, salute my friend Denny, to Robert's Retro Gaming. Let's move on. And he says, man, the weeks go quickly these days. I'm glad to hear that you've made some progress in recovering, and I encourage you to gently push your limits. If you want to garden, go ahead, but do it in careful moderation. Here's a stool or chair. Have a chair or stool or chair nearby. Be ready to stop if you feel any ill effects. Limit your time to avoid overdoing it and feeling ill effects later on. You know the drill, I'm sure, but it's easy to lose motivation. Don't you dare do that. No, I'll try not to, matey. I must admit, we have got a little folding chair that I can use. I don't have a kneeling mat, but it's the heavy digging and that I'm a little bit concerned with. But that's why I was trying to incinerate all those twigs and stuff. I got them off the lawn because when you've got a power mower like I've got, a petrol mower, it spins round this blade. Those twigs that fall on the ground, they really cut into the blade. I have to have it reground, resharpened by my uncle. He's got an angle grinder and he sharpens it for us every 2 years. So, of course, I was trying to burn all them twigs, wasn't I, yesterday? Anyway, that came to a bit of a bad conclusion. For your information, as with Bob. Oh, right, we haven't got to Bob yet. I find the volume on your blogs a little low. Usually I'm listening on earbuds, so it's not a big problem. But I am listening on a speaker, it can be hard to hear you. This is brand new news to me. I haven't read Bob yet. Let me just see. I'll move the volume thing up. It's currently at minus 10 decibels. I'll move it to minus 1.5. When I'm talking, I am actually totally in the yellow, and just at the bottom of the red, the little bars are pushing into the red. Don't want to push it too far. I've got it to minus 1.5 now. Don't know whether that'll make much of a difference. The volume recording on the Yeti speaker for Windows is at 50%, which should make no difference because I use OBS, and OBS takes control of all the devices. As soon as I open up OBS, it takes away any other restriction and uses its own mechanics. And at the moment, it's on minus 1.5. It's on minus 1.5 decibels. The lowest being minus 60. So you can see I'm well at the top. But we'll see how that goes. I will say this. Every time I've recorded, I've played it back on my computer. It's fine. I've got, and this is my phone here, look. Yeah. And it's a dual thing. It's got dual speakers. So I've got stereo speakers. Sounds wonderful. And even this other phone, this other Galaxy Note, dual speakers. So all my phones are stereo. I don't know what they sound like on mono phones. That's all I can think of. Could be anything as simple as that, but I test my recordings based on the PC and 2 stereo phones. I haven't got a mono phone anymore. Even this old battered thing here, look, which is my oldest Galaxy Note, right? Stereo speakers. It's an old Galaxy Note. You can tell it's a Note because it's got a pen. There's the pen these days. Yeah, there it is, look. So the Galaxy Note always had a pen. And it's old, really old. That's a Galaxy Note 7. When they cancelled the line, it was Galaxy Note 20. Before then, it was 10. Then there was 987. Yeah, so they went from 10 to 20 and then stopped. And the Fold took over. So yeah, hopefully the blog isn't bad, and thanks for bringing it to my attention. But it is the 150th what? Before somebody's mentioned about the volume level 159th. I will say this: if there's anything like that, please do mention it. That's quite funny, really. On the subject of Trump and his owners, because we're continuing now, they are deliberately and methodically dismantling the government of their country, a prelude to open can't even pronounce that, oligarchy? To open oligarchy like Russia. This is the most dangerous thing to happen in the world in my lifetime, and we need to be realistic about it. That means making and strengthening of alliances around the world. It also means cutting the US out of as much as possible unless they put a functioning government into place. This subject makes my blood boil, and I've been considering starting a political segment of my channel. I'm not sure how I can fit that into retro gaming. I might have to change the channel name. Why change the channel name? Tell you what, matey, start a second channel. Don't change your name because of political agendas. Be careful with political agendas, though. I wouldn't want anything nasty to happen to you, and also whether your works don't like your opinions being mentioned and all of that sort of stuff. You must have heard the phone go again. I do apologise. I have to check it every time because of my mother. No, it's from EE. For God's sake, I am not interested in any bloody thing from EE. For God's sake. So, yeah. Absolutely fantastic segment there about politics and so forth. I tried to stay away from it a little bit. I'm sorry that I've totally destroyed your eloquent writing there. I must admit my brain's not with me today, but you continue. I didn't hear you talk about the death of your fiance previously, how tragic that is. You don't really ever get completely over something like that. I'm sorry you had to go through it. Yeah, but they're trying times, but you have to get through these things. There's a lot of things that I'll talk about in my blog later on that were distressing for me at the time. And they do include deaths. It's just with my mother and me wanting her to live, I've stayed away from the death subject for quite some time. Only ever really talking about how lovely it was to have my dad around. So yeah, it's a subject we have to touch upon, and it's something that I've got to work my way through. A blog is a blog, it's a diary. The diary is something that goes through your mind. Death comes through your mind. You need to touch upon the subject. So it will happen. As always, it's nice to hear your updates and listen to your thoughts on all and sundry. The best to you and your mum, and thank you. I'll pass that on, especially at the moment with my mum, how she is. And it looks like very much like the next one is Wee Bob Art, and that's where it's probably going to link into that microphone thing. I want to see what he's put. He's put, great to watch again along, Dell. This is Wee Bob Art, and by the way, salute to Robert. One thing I struggled with this week is the volume of this video, as I was trying to use my phone speaker and couldn't turn it up loud enough. Check stats for nerds on YouTube, and your video is about minus 20 decibels. It was, I can tell you now where it was minus 15, because I've moved it up to minus 1.5. It is absolutely fine on my PC. Listen along. I have people tell me similar things in the past about a few videos on my channel. Anyway, just a point note in case I'm not the only one struggling with this. And like I say, apologies. In fact, I tend to not touch the Yeti mic dial, even when I'm doing my friends' requests. And I've done videos for you, wee Bob, your community question. They were all at that same heading. And nobody batted an eyelid in regards to whether they could hear me or not. So yeah, I can only imagine it's different phones and the characteristic of the speakers that they use and the software that they use for sound output. I know that Mainmeister is constantly battling with volume in his live streams when people have said, I can hardly hear you. And when I've asked the question, but during the live stream, can I just ask a quick question? Are you watching on a phone? A lot of them have turned back and said, yes, I am. Or a tablet. Tablets are the worst. Oh, the amount of times my phone speaker system has been better than a tablet. Especially Samsung tablets. Samsung tabs. Tab 10, I think I had. Awful speaker in that. The best one I've got is a Ben & Olufsen Dell tablet. HP tablet, sorry. Gorgeous. Bang & Olufsen speakers in that. Marvellous. Anyway, I've turned it up. Let me know. I need to watch Master of the Universe again, as I did like it as a kid. Really liked Crimson Tide. Love Crimson Tide. Moving away from Gene Hackman, what do you think is your top 1 or 3, if you can think of them, Denzel movies? Which I take it you mean Denzel Washington. For me, the one that springs to mind straight away is Training Day. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is Denzel Washington you're talking about, yeah. Anyway, hope life is good, and all the best to you and your mum. Yes, and by now you know a little bit about my mum. Well, Crimson Tide's going to be at the top because Denzel Washington's in that, as we were talking about with Gene Hackman. I'm in a minority here, love Denzel Washington in a film called The Book of Eli, which is a dystopian film where he's walking across the desert with a book. And this book, he's trying to get back to where it came from. And books are scarce. It's almost like a Mad Max film, but instead of it being like fuel, it's about paper and books. So he's carrying this book across the desert to a city. And obviously there's a villain that's after this book as well. I don't want to ruin the ending by saying what the book was. You'll probably guess it. But there's lots of little things in there, like he's going around listening on an old what do they call them? The MP3 player that iPhone came out with the Apple came out with, the Apple I don't know. Anyway, he's got an MP3 player, and he has to get the batteries to keep going during with a dystopian environment. So yeah, Book of Eli, that's one. One of the earliest films I ever saw him in was Philadelphia, and I thought that was a very powerful story. I thought it was good. It was good casting. That it's about a little bit about prejudice in there, can't have somebody working for us who's got AIDS, and hiring a black lawyer who also has his own prejudices. So that was good. And I really liked Philadelphia. But there's so many... he's in Taking Pelham 123, which is a great remake. He's in Training Day, as you said. He's in The Mancunian Candidate, another remake. He's in a number of great films. He's just been in Gladiator 2. Not that he was great in that. They had very little to do, really. But still, his presence was there. Yeah. Fantastic actor. I wouldn't class him as Gene Hackman actor ability, but a strong candidate for one of the greats. So yeah. I hope anyway I've given you a couple of films there, haven't I? But the three are Crimson Tide, Book of Eli, Philadelphia for me. Yeah, for definite. Anyway, thank you so much, and I loved your community questions. I've just watched your one, which I'll talk about later on in regards to your week. I'm so glad you like my format, that you're sort of trying to put a little bit of a sprinkling of into your talking about your week, because that's what I'm doing, isn't it? I'm talking about my week, what I watched, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, good luck with that. Like I say, I really like the idea as well of the little slogans that you've put on, little riddles. I thought that was quite a novel touch. I'd never be able to keep up with that every week. A riddle every week? No, Jesus. I think I tried that actually in the first year. I went, oh, what's the next letter in the sequence? I remember that one, which was, what was the letter sequence? It was O, T, T, F, F, S. What's the next letter in the sequence? Which is an old Dungeons and Dragons trick. Most people know. So thank you so much. Salute to you, sir. And we move to a new person. I haven't come across this one. It's RaisinGan84. He says, hi, Del. Been watching for a while, but first time comment. No, welcome, sir. Thank you so much. And as an introduction to you, I read out all comments verbatim. So hopefully I get yours out. So it says, I mainly follow your channel for the gaming stuff, but I know you're a big cinema fan. Are you into Asian, particularly Japanese films at all? I see you post pickups from 88 Films and Arrow, who are releasing some great Japanese stuff at the minute. I got very involved with Asian films around 20 years ago with DVD releases from Tartan Asia Extreme, who put out the likes of Ring, Dark Water, Battle Royale, and so on. They are sadly gone. But it's still great to see some cult and generally less well-known Japanese cinema get Blu-ray and 4K releases nowadays. Oh, what a lovely worded thing to ask. And it's Muckman Movies that's given me the encouragement to try some different type of cinema. I mean, like I say, I've got the Seven Samurai, which is Korean Japanese, and I've watched the odd thing like Old Boy and stuff like that, Akira, but I've never really gotten embraced Asian cinema until Muckman came along and said, you really ought to get into it. It is probably now the right time to do so with such average to trash stuff coming out from the Western world. And he's not far wrong. Obviously, Godzilla -1 has done internationally incredibly well and comes across over here just how you don't need all that money on special effects. You can still have a guy in a rubber suit going around being Godzilla. But what I'm trying to say here is that was just a little joke. What we are trying to say here is that the back catalogue of Asian and Japanese films is so rich and such a fertile ground that if you were to start just scratching at the surface and you started to get into watching that stuff, you'd be there for a well number of years just seeing what you missed. And while that's happening, all this other tarnishy rubbish is coming out. So good one. Muckman is helping me there. If you can give some more examples. You've written down here, look, Ring, Dark Water, Battle Royale. I'll definitely give those a go. I'll have a little look at the prices of them. I might take one of those as a punt. I don't know whether you think Ring is better than Dark Water, which is better than Battle Royale. I don't know. So it's an unknown for me. What I'll try and do is find out just what the synopsis is of those three films and then choose the one that's closest to me. I'm not a huge fan of martial arts, but I do watch them. Everybody knows I've seen Enter the Dragon. I've seen, The Big Boss and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I've watched a number of Bruce Lee's and Jackie Chan's and all of that of this world. But I haven't watched every Bruce Lee film. I'm just not that into martial arts. But I do tend to find they're good. I used to like the TV show Monkey. You'd think I'd like battles like that. But I do seem to tend to find they put a lot of snap sound effects in, How you hit someone and sound like that, I don't know. But there is some cracking stuff out there. So thank you very much for that. We'll get to the next one. So salute to you. Thank you definitely for watching. We get to Steve's Gaming. Steve's Gaming's put, my friend, you bastard, it ain't your channel, you little shit. That's my little salute I have to do every week. I'm sorry, it's just the rules. He's put, hi Dal, excellent blog as usual, mate. Let me just first offer my deepest condolences for the loss of your girlfriend. This was back in, by the way, 2002. So we are talking about a memory here. I cannot even begin to imagine how awful that must have been for you. So very sad indeed. Okay, well, I'm typing this on Wednesday as I wait for your and Ian's weekly stream. So not a lot has happened here, apart from I saw my doctor yesterday after waiting a month and 3 days for an appointment. Should not have bothered. He didn't give a shit, and it was time and money wasted. I hope your doctor's better than mine. Not much, matey. I only get to hear of him on the phone. I would love to have a rant about Trump, but the comment would be deleted, or I'd be banned from YouTube. So I'll leave that, as I'm sure you know what I think of the shyster anyway. That's my blog gone down the Swanee. I've been quite down recently. My age and health issues are getting to me. But then, on the other hand, I think of all the simply awesome times I've had through. I've seen men walk on the moon, seen the best music ever in the 60s, seen the greatest decade in TV, films and gaming, i.e. the 80s, seen and lived through the golden age of the arcade. So even though I'm old and have one foot in the grave, I'm very, very delighted to have lived through such wonderful times indeed. And that does make me smile and make me happy, and I wouldn't swap it for anything. Absolutely, what a lovely comment. What, you couldn't word it. I mean, we have to look back and go, do you know what, don't live too much in the past. But my God, what we've lived through, us people of a certain age. I mean, I'm in my mid to late 50s. Most people know that. And did I envisage what it'd be like for me back in the day? I just squandered time. Oh, I want to be 18 so I can get a car. I want to be 21 so my car insurance goes down. I want to be 25 so house insurance goes down, or whatever it is. It was always a leap of what's just around the corner, and it was always based around money. Lower this, lower insurance in this, lower insurance in that, lower, the ability to drive, the ability to drink, the ability, it was just silly legacy numbers that you latched upon, and then you wasted your years waiting for that time to come along. And you didn't think about filling the time properly while you were waiting. So yeah, it's very interesting, to be quite honest. So let's throw you a question or two, my friend. This is what my friend has put. Question 1. Which sports do you enjoy watching on TV? Personally, I'm only interested in motorsport. If it has an engine, I'll watch it. But I'm not interested in electronic vehicles like Formula E. No, I tried to watch Formula E. All I tended to find was when they got hit, wow, they disintegrated. And it just didn't seem right. They were bouncing about. It was like go-karts with a Formula One shell on it. I just didn't see it myself. Maybe there is something in the engine noise argument, about the engines. I don't know, because they were certainly going fast enough in these Formula E's. But anyway, yeah, like you, I like Formula One. I love playing cricket, hate to watch it. Unless I'm actually at a cricket ground, and then I love it again. Just something about television cricket that I find boring. Just like television golf. Can't even see the bloody ball when it goes up in the air, let alone land on a fairway, right? He hits that from behind. They always show the driving range from behind the golfer. He whacks the ball, and I'm telling you now, I can't see it. I'm going, what? What's that? Then he cuts to another camera, and you can see it panning down, and I'm going, I still can't see it, can't see it. It hits the ground. Oh, I see it now, it's there. Boring. Absolutely. Every shot is like that. Just so boring to watch. I love boxing. I watch boxing. My mum doesn't like it, all that fighting and punching in the face and trying to knock someone out. But it is exciting when a knockout occurs. I'm trying to get comfortable. I do apologise. I'm having difficulty today. Boxing I like. I used to like watching the wrestling, the British wrestling, Giant Haystacks and Big Daddy and Pat Roach and, the British Bulldog and some of the others. Some American wrestling I've watched as well. Used to watch it in the early days, don't watch it anymore now. Never really got into Ultimate Fighting Championship at all. And in the Olympics, I had a partial interest in judo and all of that. But anyway, moving away from fighting, I'll watch my home team football game and I'll watch an international England game. Football was something my dad would never miss any of. If it could be bloody Plymouth Argyle, and my dad would watch it. Oh, there's no Premiership. Oh well, I'll watch Plymouth Argyle then. Just turn it over. My dad used to like the horse racing. Because, living on a farm, we used to look after some horses and all of that. Plus, he was a betting man as well. I don't like horse racing. I don't watch that too much. I watch the big races, the Grand National. And I'll watch things like the Oxford-Cambridge boat race. But we're moving away a little bit. Like I say, I'll watch I'll watch religiously the motorsports and the boxing, for definite. And the rest I'll watch, but I've got either a partial interest or no interest whatsoever. So that's that one. Thanks, great question. Never had that question before. Thank you very much. Question 2. Me and my dad, by the way, bonded with sport a little bit on telly. Question 2. What was the most boring hobby you tried as a kid? Stamp collecting for me. My mum suggested it. I did it for like 2 weeks, and it was so boring I almost fell into a coma. All the best, and give my love to your mum. I tried stamp collecting, but I gave in just purely on the basis that they weren't really exciting picture-wise. So trading cards became more something for me to collect than stamps. I wouldn't say it's boring. I know that you're never going to get your penny black. But an interesting subject, and I know that Ian Hill is a stamp collector, so I won't say anything really too derogatory anyway, but it wasn't for me. So many little hobbies that I've tried that my mum said, let's start doing this. We got into this habit once of doing wax rubbings of gravestones. Do you know, you go to a church with a wax pen and a piece of paper, and you'd lay it out, a big roll of paper, and then you'd start rubbing, getting some rubbings together. And I used to like the very nature that all of the old stone was picked up, gave the gravestone its character. That again turned into a, how often do you do that when you can't drive? So that turned into a long, boring, what's the point in carry on? Because by the time I got to the third church, about 6 years of your life had gone by. So, you know, it's a bit silly. So yeah, I've collected trade cards, collected comics. Don't think there's much else to talk about really. I've collected. I did try to capture butterflies, but I didn't like that much. I didn't like killing them and pinning them and all of that. I preferred somebody else doing it, and I'd buy the picture. You know the wall-mounted proper butterfly in its container type thing. Yeah, I think that's about it, really, matey. Good question, bad answer. That's how I look at that one. And I do apologise, my brain is a bit scatty at the moment. In fact, I'm just going to take another little break. I hope you don't mind. I'll be back in a jiffy, honestly. Just want to clear the air a little bit. Thank you so much for your understanding, by the way. Won't be long. And we're back, and it's just approaching midday, so I need to go as fast as I can now. I hope you don't mind. Salute to all those that I've just mentioned before. And we get to Muckman Movies, and he's put, all right, Del, hope you and your mum are well. Well, now you know, and I'm a bit worried, so I need to get to the hospital to find out what's happening today. It was funny watching her infiltrate your video the other day. Maybe she could do a guest spot one day. She's been in many of my videos. She's infiltrated a few, and in fact, in the early days when I was doing stuff with Mainmeister, she would actually come on and she'd say, hello, world, and that, and some of the stuff. Hey, maybe I will, when she's out of the hospital, if she's not too bad, get her to sit in front of here and talk. I don't know. I don't know what she'd talk about. Might be interesting. It's worrying times in the world at the moment, with Trump seemingly having a huge impact on the world trade, climate change, the stock market, our pensions and investments, the Ukraine war and the impact on their own Medicare system, and sacking of thousands of federal workers. Do you think he'll be ousted from within? ? Much like what happened to Liz Truss. I do hope so very soon. That's an interesting one. I don't really have an opinion. I think he's probably a little bit too much in the following department, because he is putting America number one. There's a lot of people that have seen what's happened then with Biden revert back, and those things that he tried to change reverted more into the norm. And then when he's back, he's saying, oh, sod that, I'm going back to my regime. And it's all a big disruption, isn't it? And he is a businessman. This is the thing that I suffer a little bit with, because most of our politicians, the one that we've got, Prime Minister, was a lawyer. The one before that, more into finance, and so forth and so forth. They obviously have the best interests in the country, but they use their own past to shape the future, which has only a partial part of what politics is. So if you don't have a deal for Trump, he's not interested. What about uniting countries? If you're in business, you're into the market of cutthroat. If you're in the market of cutthroat, you're not trying to make friends. If you're not trying to make friends, then you're dividing the world. That's a bad thing, I think. That's all I can say on that, really. So I'm probably in your boat a little bit more, but I don't think he'll be ousted like Truss. No. Anyway, on a much lighter note, question: if you had a dinner party for 6 people, which five people, alive or dead? Yeah, because I'm one of the 6. Would you invite? Doesn't have to be solely from film or TV. Interesting question, because I've heard it many times before. Always have trouble because there's so many people, interesting people, that I'd love to have around. But of course, one of them would be my dad, just to spend any amount of time back when my dad would be there. So of course my dad would be sitting proudly next to me. And let me think. I've always said I'd want Muhammad Ali there. What a conversation you'd have with Muhammad Ali. My God. The rest are sort of like superficial and ones that I just have so many questions for. There's John Romita Sr. He died last year, and I'd love to have had a signature from him by meeting him. But that's never going to happen. He died before I ever went back to America. I have to look at that bleep in a minute, see if it's anything. And I mean, what can you say? I grew up loving the Carry On films, and I always wanted to meet Sid James. But then I've always wanted to meet Eric Morecambe and Frankie Howard, and all of those. Brilliant. Jack Lemmon would definitely be there. And if I could, Walter Matthau. But if I want to go even further back, wouldn't it be lovely to have Beethoven or Mozart at the table talking about what was it like writing music back in that time? You know, how did you listen to other music? All that sort of stuff. But I've mentioned so many names there. You wanted 5, so I suppose Muhammad Ali, John Romita Sr., Sid James, Jack Lemmon, and my dad. Yeah. Not a great list. I'm sure you're going, so many other people you could have had there. I'm thinking more along the lines of, I think my dad would appreciate Muhammad Ali being there. So that's a definite. And I think he'd probably get great enjoyment with Sid James because he was a gambler. So I think those two would appease my dad. Because it wouldn't be just me asking questions. All these people would be bouncing off of each other saying, oh, bloody hell, you're here. What did you do? What could I ask you as a question? And let me think, when you did your 5th Symphony, Beethoven, what was going through your mind on that one? Oh, can you hear me? I don't know. Interesting question. I can't see myself buying Megalopolis. It looks terrible. Have you seen the YouTube channel Corridor Crew? They do breakdowns of good and bad CGI in films. No, but I'm going to look at it after this. Highly recommend you watch them. They did a really funny video scrutinizing the CGI in Megalopolis. I saw it in the pictures. It was bad, but it's a Francis Ford Coppola film. It was a steelbook. I've got the original. So it sort of made sense for me to buy it and not wait. That was the reason for that. It's very sad about Gene Hackman and his wife. I find it very suspicious considering one of the dogs was found dead in a closet too. He was one of the best. He was. And they've now put it down to the natural causes, and they didn't all die at the same time. That's all I know. Haven't heard much more. I've had so much stuff going on in my life that I haven't really followed it up too closely. But I will try and get caught up with the rest of that, it's very interesting, like you say. So I've missed an awful lot there. I got two, salute, my friend. I got two here from Martroid. I don't know which order they're in. So, right, one says me again. So I'll go to the other one first. Hey, Del. Great blog as usual. You'll certainly put me in the mood to watch some Gene Hackman classics. If nothing else, did you say you'd sent me a message? It's just that I haven't seen anything come through and now I'm concerned. Well, concerned might be a bit too strong a word, but just thought I'd say something in case you thought I was being rude and hadn't replied. No, matey, that might be my own brain. I have sent you a message now. You have replied to it, so you know it's working. That's brilliant. Next one you came up with, me again, Del. I've noticed that I've been falling well behind with watching chronologically gaming lately. And to be honest, that's not the only channel either. I know it's a very first world problem to have, and I'm sure it's been discussed many times. But do things like that worry you? Yeah, a little bit. There's so much now that I'm watching that I can't watch it all. Certain people will think that I'm ignoring them when I'm not. It's just you have to pick and choose and what comes up in your alerts, and my alerts are not actually always telling me that your stuff is out there, and it's a lot of other stuff that worries me. It worries me because, well, last year I had some problems with people thinking I was ignoring them, and they were putting some nasty statements in my box, and it was for no reason other than I didn't know they'd brought out something new, and I've got an awful lot for me to watch, and certain stuff will not interest me, and therefore they would think that I'm ignoring them, and then they start acting a little bit like super fans and giving me some bad comments. Those people I don't really have too much time for, but the people that I didn't watch, I do feel bad about that, but what can you do? So I don't want to go down that road anymore. It is what it is. I move forward and I try and incorporate everyone. And I definitely, if I've watched it, I'll mention it. So it's not that I've fallen out. It's just there's so much of it, So yeah, that's that really. To be honest, you've put, I think the reason I'm experiencing this is because I seem to view more and more channels and videos about Gaza and the Ukraine these days and get very caught up in all of that. I think it's important to be informed about while it seems to be more like work. And then I like to indulge in some nice gaming stuff as a reward and as some relief. Big thanks to the likes of yourself, Rob, Steve, Mark, Al, and Colin for what you all do. And thanks for reading my gibberish. Not gibberish at all, matey, and my God, I hope they all heard that. Rob, Steve, Mark, Al, Colin, and by the way, everybody else that he watches. We're all in awe of people that do stuff on YouTube. It's something that we all look forward to. We need a distraction in our lives sometimes, but there's only so many minutes in a day. We've all got work, we've all got family. Always remember that. And try not to get too disheartened. I'm trying not to, and I've seen my numbers dwindle. It's just people have lives. Certain stuff is going to interest you and you'll move away when it doesn't interest you anymore. So yeah, very big on that one. Thank you very much, Martroid. Point taken. Very good. Sorry, I had to have another drink. We got to the last comment and it's Colin, my friend Colin, aka Ponder, as you know, who will put me right on everything I go wrong, which is why his list gets larger every week. Bloody hell, man. I'm only making a blog. Right, let's see. The first one he's put is, let's see. There are 3 seasonal calendars. I knew it. There are 3 seasonal calendars. First day of spring on the first of the meteorological calendar. Equinox is the astronomical calendar. And we don't talk about the astrological camera because it's just nuts. I knew he was going to mention something like that. I brought that up because the meteorologist on the weather forecast said people will think that the first day of spring is the 1st of March, where there is the meteorological calendar, which is about the 20th, which is equinox. And I mentioned it verbatim, what she said. And I knew that it was coming out. Of course I know about. I'll tell you what. Go back into my blogs. You'll see when my granddad was alive, I talked about the equinox because he was big on the equinox. As soon as I mentioned about it's getting darker, granddad didn't say, oh yeah, the equinox is coming up. It should only be about a couple more days away, mustn't it? Etc. etc. He was big on the equinox. I think most people of that age that were born 1910 and all that sort of stuff, equinox was a big thing. Gathering at Stonehenge and all of that is something, but equinox is something they all knew. Unless you ask a teenager these things these days, they go, "Boo?" So of course, when my granddad, my ears were well open when he was talking about it. I'm not going to say much about Trump and co, except to say it's far more concerning than ever I was expecting. Yeah, same here. On a more personal note, your mum is more important to give her my best regards, and by that, all these bleeps are going on. I'm just about to have a little look. No, still nothing. And one of those bleeps was actually you, Colin. I don't want to post publicly. How's your mum? Oh, okay. I'll talk about that in a moment. That'll be fun. Got a message from you at the same time as I'm reading out your message. So I'm not going to say much about it. On a more personal note, your mum is more important, so give her my best. You know I will. Sony are sucking big time in Steve's case. Yeah, that was, if you remember last week, it was all about his dad's account. There should definitely be an account recovery system in place for situations like his, for definite. It amazes me that they must have seen this and come across this a million times before and have done nothing. They must think that they probably covered the bare minimum ground that it requires. It'll work for, I'm sure they must think it works for most and not all. So they can't do a fits all, so they carry on with what they got. Review it, Sony. You're an arse. It's not the winning in the kerfuffle, it's the taking part. So don't worry about being bad. I do fully understand the time issues. Yeah, I must start reconsidering that. I've been saying that each time a season starts. From a previous question, I can confirm that the RFID blocker pouches I bought for the car keys work perfectly. Have the spare in a pouch in my desk drawer, and the main key hangs in a pouch in the passage. Brilliant. They are fantastic things. I've been carrying those around for some time now. They never understood why people don't. As for contractless technology, it's all a matter of choice, and I know you're on the same page for that, definitely. I do take precautions and have yet to be compromised, though I'm not going to get complacent with that, as I know how easy it is to slip up, for definite. I just look at it as the more you're in different sort of departments where your information of finance is, and the more you get hacked, the more that they can interrogate other areas that they'll instantly also try and hack. I tried to keep things down to a minimum. I've made it very difficult, as best as I can anyway. And I don't like things like wallets and gift cards and all of that sort of stuff. As soon as they hack you, they've gone straight to your Amazon or whatever, and they start wiping that away. You can't prove that you didn't spend it. You'll never get that back. My thoughts on the 3D printer were voiced by Steve, and I did read out Steve's verbatim. Yes, basically I'm fully aware of the issues with the latest firmware update on Bamboo Labs 3D printers. But as I said to Steve, I don't think these issues will affect me, as I'm very much not on the creative type. If it was, then I would definitely avoid them. But for my purpose, it's not a problem. Definitely. This is where I was saying you get what you feel fits best for you. I've always said if you want the max of everything, then of course you pay for that. Then the returns that you get from that investment are going to be questionable. You bought the most expensive, but you don't use it very often. What's the point in that? Hone in on what it's specifically for and go for that one. That's the best way to look at it, I think. You can still use any CAD package and export to STL format, and that's enough for me. Brilliant. You got your brain's definitely on your head, matey. Great. My question for the next blog: what are your most and least favorite breeds of dog? Oh, good God. Let me think. This is going to sound bad because there's the dogs that we've had in my life and the dogs that I've seen working in the probation service, which are working dogs. And there are dogs that I've come across in my life which I fell in love with. And then there are the dogs that I think just look pug ugly. And basically, I don't even know why you'd bother having them. But every living creature should be loved. So that sounds bloody awful from me, doesn't it? But we had an next door neighbour's dog, which I fell in love with. And it was a Springer Spaniel. And its name was Dylan. And it used to, the way it moved its head, I fell in love with it. You know, I had a ball like this, and it'd move his head like this. And then it'd be going like this, and I'm about to chuck the ball, and he'd go and get it, and then he'd bring it to me, and he'd shake his head when I was trying to grab the ball out of his mouth, you know, because he wanted to play tug of war. Then I go, and then he'd move back, and he'd be going, oh, lovely dog. Oh, Springer Spaniel, gorgeous it was. Lovely dog. We had a Shetland sheepdog. It was my sister's. And if you've ever known what a Shetland sheepdog is, it's like a mini collie. You know, Collie Lassie, you know, was a collie. A Shetland sheepdog is a miniature version of those. Gorgeous. We had one it got to 14. I think it got to the age of 14 before its kidneys packed in. And, of course, I've come across many, many Labradors because working in the probation service, we used to have guests turn up for talks, and they brought the working dogs in, you know, the ones being trained for the blind. And they talked about how they train them up and how you should never approach one when you see one out in the streets. They're working dogs. You mustn't distract them. They're fantastic dogs. And then, of course, the Alsatians. We had apparently our family had an Alsatian when I was in a pram. It used to sit at the bottom of my pram and guard me, apparently. And it hated anybody approaching the pram when I was in it. But I never grew up knowing that dog because it died before I had a memory that I can go back to remembering. So all of those, Springer Spaniels, Labradors, Shetland Sheepdogs, Alsatians, brilliant. And of course, sheepdogs on the farm. We've had those as well, and they're so smart. Those black and white sheepdogs, gorgeous. You've seen them on One Man and His Dog, you know, chasing sheep and bringing them into pens. So intelligent, gorgeous. Now the bad side, and I think the thing that comes across when you're looking at all the ones that I'm going to mention is it's just their looks, and that's bad because I probably fit into the ugly stick side when it comes to human males. You know what I mean? So there is the pug dog for the start, a small little thing with a pug face. Now, down at them, Chihuahuas. Oh, look like cats with no fur. No. And bull terriers. Never understood them either. It's amazing. I think every single one of those has got hardly any hair. I think. Don't mind Jack Russells and all of that. My granddad had a Jack Russell. Not my favourite. You either find them very boisterous or you find them fat and waddling. And even Columbo had a sausage dog, beagle. Never really got on with them either, snotty-nosed things. But every creature should feel loved, and everybody sees things in a different way, including Rottweilers and the rest of the stuff. So I don't want to mention the bad. They're all good. Those are the top ones, though, that I mentioned, which were in the good. And I don't think it comes to anybody's mind what I'd just chosen. So that is the end of the comments and the shout-outs and all of that. And we'll rush through the next. Just to let you know, there's going to be no trailers today. I worked very late into the night just getting this together. So we'll go through this. Watched on YouTube these are all new categories. Watched on YouTube. So we got This Week in Retro and Techmoan are the standard points. Techmoan still has a flu. So, of course, there's nothing coming out from there. So This Week in Retro, which is a staple point of mine, Neil in the Cave. Been watching this channel of This Week in Retro from around about episode, I think it was 35, 36. He's now in the, I think, 200s. He did mention the episode number. I think it was 209. So I've watched a hell of a lot of it. And every Saturday I've watched it. And the subjects this week were I Know Kung Fu. I Need Your Clothes to Go... Oh, yeah. I need your clothes to go get boots on my bike, which is a weird reference to the Terminator 2 film because the subject was about the new Terminator 2 game that's coming out, which I'll talk about a little bit later on as well. And shortcuts end in disaster. So those were the three subjects. Good, interesting subjects this week. More interested in the housekeeping than anything, which he has as well each week. But all the stuff there, all educational, all great to listen to. The subjects, though, is a bit mixed bag this week compared to last week. I found it more interesting last week than this week. But always a good watch. Yeah, for definite. Chronologically Gaming every day again last week. He's still in November. My God, the amount of stuff that was coming out in November. And by the way, he's at November, the end of 1982. And already he's done 360 VIC-20 games, over 400 Atari games. He's, every single one is documented, played, put into a spreadsheet. And you can see the day it was released or the month it was released, plus what type of game it is, all of that. If so, you could just filter his spreadsheet to VIC-20 and you'd have a full comprehensive list and see every single game that came out on the VIC-20. How wonderful is that list? That list is going to be a protected document at the end. And like I say, he's got to the end of November 82. Brilliant show, by the way. I watched the Gadget Show podcast, which has now moved from telly to YouTube, which is great. They didn't have too much this week. It was Dyson Airwrap versus Babyliss test. Not really into hair products, but I do remember the old Gadget Show doing versus type stuff. And Flat Pack Showdown Easy Clicks system versus IKEA. Again, another versus type fight. It was quite good. Last week they had more on things like physical media and weirdest gadgets. Far more interesting for me. But the Gadget Show was always full of diversity in different things. So it was nice to watch this week, just to be a bit different. There is a channel called Reef Entertainment, which comes from that This Week in Retro with that Terminator 2 game that I mentioned. So they brought out the Terminator 2 release game trailer, which looks absolutely brilliant, by the way. It's going to be available on PC, Switch, PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox X, all of those. And they were talking about that their engine has got a special uniqueness that makes porting to other systems easier, which means that as much as they've got those core titles at the moment, they're going to actually move and do an 8-bit version and a 16-bit version for those things like Amiga and Atari STs and Spectrum. Very interesting to know that you got an engine that will cater for those. It's absolutely brilliant. So that was great this week. Then there's a channel called Love Quality Tom. Love Quality Tom. And he did every difference between the comic book version of Daredevil and the TV iteration of Daredevil. So very interesting if you're going to watch the new Daredevil Netflix miniseries. You know, the Disney Netflix... the Disney version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Daredevil, because Netflix is now not having it, and the stuff that happened in there is canon, partially. So, yeah, very interesting to watch a channel like that when that's just come out. And we're moving now into film, TV, and soundtrack YouTube. And here we are with some of the stay points. We've got Ian Hill, The Ramblings. As you know, I do a chat with him on a Wednesday. Fantastic guy. What a great channel. But man, my God, he takes up most of my pad. I've shown you that before. So what has he brought out with? So he's brought out my top 5 crime films, 1988 to 1995. Packages from Zavvi and eBay. Packages from My Mate Music Man, Muckman Movies. Doctor Who Complete Collection Season 7 Unboxing. Doctor Who Earthshock Review. X-Files Season 3 Episode 17 Review. Patti Smith Group. The album was called Wave. He did the review of that album. Absolutely fantastic. I probably destroyed what I was trying to get across there on what he did. And then, of course, he was live with me on Wednesday. What an action-packed week. My God, look at that output. Tons. I mean, my God, 1988 to 1995. I mean, 7 episodes of crime films, 5 films per day in a short. Absolutely fantastic set of shorts. Brilliant. If you just want to know, I fancy watching a police drama from 1986. I'll go over to Ian and have a look at 1986 crime stuff. Bang, there you are. Don't even have to think about it. Brilliant. Then there's my mate Playtendo guy, who I haven't spoken to now for quite some time. I'm feeling a bit sad about that, to be quite honest. He's a very busy guy. But he did a massive video on Nintendo Switch 2025 gaming haul. So everything from January till now, what he's bought on the Nintendo Switch. And it was 15 plus games. My God, man. Loads of money. Fantastic video. Great. You've got Mondo Chelovich Movies, who I am not worthy, as I said. He's so knowledgeable on horror. He's my go-to guy for that. He did gifts from his friend Dave Ramsden. I hope I got that right, Mondo. I do apologise if I have. They were mostly film books, but those film books were gorgeous. Oh my God, I have loved every one of them. The covers were great. They were thick, good quality, shrink wrapped. It looked brilliant, immaculate. Can't think of a better guy to get a gift about increasing his knowledge on films and so forth. He's already got a huge cranium. And, how's that crown gets on his head, I don't know. Jim Jam Movies, who I've met in Birmingham. He's done some more pickups. Absolutely fantastic. Always good to get a video out from him. Always cheers me up, makes me smile. Did you see that, who I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, got married? He did a Popeye's Revenge, which is a 2025 movie, which he did a review of. I won't give you spoilers, but don't think he liked it that much. But just go and check it out. Maybe you'll find out why. Maybe you're a big fan of Popeye. Who knows? Go over there, check it out. Definitely worth your while. Through the Lens, who is my friend Josh. The last time I spoke to him was last Sunday. He was playing a game. I don't know where this game was. It was just before the Oscars. And he was trying to teach me what this game was, which is somebody mentions a name of a person on a film set, or the film itself, or the actors that are on the film. And if they mention it, you then got to come up with an equal name that's associated with it based on a film. So you'd have to type in the name of the film and who specifically in that you wanted to reference for the person to give you a retort. Brilliant. I would be useless at it, I think. I'd be okay with the older films, wouldn't be with the newer films. Don't watch enough foreign TV. So there's that. Brilliant. So Through the Lens, definitely worth a watch. So like him if you can. Otherwise, what are you standing around here for? Subscribe to him. Brilliant. Wee Bob, as I said, he did a community question last week, which I did and gave an answer to. He's done this one time under his Wee Bob account. He's done Bob's Corner, a movies and games and live video stream. Brilliant. About time you did something like that, matey. And the more that we can interact with you, the better. And the last one for film, TV and soundtracks is Muckman Movies, who did a favourite British comedy film video. And when we talk British, we are talking things like Ealing and the Carry-Ons and so forth. So he's brought out his favourites that everybody should have in their collections if you're a collector. Or partially even interested in them. So that's marvellous as well. So again, I've just got to take another quick break. There is only one more page to go, and that is Games and Tech YouTube. So we're busily heading towards the end, and we'll call it then a day. So I'll be back in a moment.
Okay, approaching the end. So Game and Tech YouTube. So I'm sorry if I'm going quickly, but we've got my stay points on here that are all my friends that are part of my Discord and I've followed for years, and that's why they're in this section called Game and Tech YouTube, because that was the sort of concentration at the beginning of my blog. So we got Down the Rabbit Hole. He's done Answer to Wee Bob's Community Question, which I also did. Absolutely fantastic set that he gave us answers. Go and watch it. Definitely worth your time. Try Ukrainian Soup. That was funny. Not. No, worth a watch on that one as well. And he's just got his third chainmail shirt. That was interesting because I didn't know he had 3 for a start. Brilliant if you ever want to know anything about chainmail and all of that sort of stuff. Very interesting subject. That's brilliant. Salute, my friend. By the way, watch out if you're watching this Down the Rabbit Hole. Because I'm doing a sort of homage to what you've done actually in the past, hopefully this week. So that'll be one of my extra videos past my friend stuff if I can get my mother well enough. Then we got Robert's Retro Gaming, and man, these two, Robert Retro Gaming and Steve's Gaming, my God, their output. Here's Robert's Retro Gaming, every single one a gold star. No Man's Sky episode 26, Subnautica, which I gave him as a prezi, episode 16. Minecraft Exile, episode 124. He loves his Minecraft, my God. Arcade, playing Carnival. Spectrum, playing Ghosts and Goblins. Atari 8-Bit, playing War Games. Hyperblast, Checkers, and Quarkson. And Hyperblast was one that he gave me as a friend's request to play. So you got bonus on Hyperblast this week. If you go and visit him, you can go and watch mine as well and see whether I beat his score. It was the first time me playing it. I'm sure it was probably the first time him playing it. Very interesting game. Go and have a little look at that. Brilliant. Had a fun week with Robert. Absolutely great. And I had equal as much fun as Steve's Gaming. The bastard fucking hates his little channel. By the way, it's the law. I have to do that. So what did he bring out? How Not to Play Elden Ring, episodes 27 to 32. He's loving playing this game. My God. Amount of enthusiasm he puts into that. Spectrum, he played Diamond Thief and a little sort of like
a creative piece of suite called Spectre 17. That's definitely worth a watch from you. He's continuing his home soft discs for the Atari, discs 44 and 45. He played a Commodore 64 game called House of Usher, based on his past memories of it. And BBC Games Not Played, never played these games, episode 11. And I think he's only still at the beginning half of the alphabet. So there's a heck of a lot of games he didn't play. My God. All worthy of your attention. But then again, so are these that I'm just about to mention. Just bear with me. I'll just pause for a second. As you can guess, that was my sister, and she's on her way. So I need to sort of like wrap this up as quickly as I can. Please take note of these ones I'm just about to mention. We're just about getting to the end of the blog. There is 20th Century Gaming, who did 2 Commodore 64 lives, parts 1 and 2, playing Tales of the Arabian Nights, which I've got very fond memories playing that game, and a very funny one with Alan from Mainmeister, who played that game. Absolutely brilliant. That's worth your time. Seb's Place, as you know, does an absolute fantastic job production value-wise on stuff. He's done something called, an episode called Mastertronic Scammed Me. But it wasn't really a scam thing, but it was very interesting if you're into the beginning of Mastertronic and the budget range. Very interesting because there were 20 or so titles and he's put them in order of sales. And it's very interesting what the top one was, especially when you consider the year that Mastertronic started and how old that machine is. So I won't give too much away. But then you've got Colin Jones, aka Pondo, who I've just been talking about just now. He done his 83rd blog, and he's doing Everything Commodore 64 challenge called Tilt this month. So those were 2 interesting things to watch. Absolutely brilliant. One, a blog, which I love anyway, and Everything challenge. Wow, you got to love these challenges. He's so good at the bloody joystick. It's enough to make you cringe, little bastard. I wish I was as good as him. And then you got my mate Mainmeister. I always put him at the end because it's not the best till last, but my God, it's how I started off really here. And if you've got some questions for his waffle, please do so. He's got such interesting answers. But he did a Monday live stream. He did a Nice and Nasty podcast with Andy Roberts. He did a 10-minute mashup of an old game that I used to love called Falcon Patrol. And the Friday Waffle was with me at the time where my mum wasn't well. So maybe my demeanour could have been a little bit better. I don't know. But that's the end of the sort of written part of the blog. Now there's just the stuff that came this week. Let me just get this ready here. And we'll put the overhead cam on. There we go. And I'll just show off a few of these. There's some steelbooks. One here, look, which is Lord of the Rings, an animated one called War of Rohirrim. Look at the gorgeousness of that steelbook. I had to have that, even though I haven't heard of the animated War of the Lord of the Rings. But it looks very manga-ish or Japanese-ish, but it looks like interesting things. So I'm looking forward to watching that. 12 certificate for a cartoon as well. You've then got Wicked, which won an Oscar. That's just come out. I dare say they waited for that before bringing it out. It's a steel book. It's the theatrical version and a sing-along version. There's the back of it. Quite a nice, bit of a lackluster, I think, design, but there is some spot glossing on the crown. I don't know if you can see that above that lady with a pink dress. Look there. Brilliant. An oldish film now with a not brilliant, I think, cover. I think it looks a bit messy, to be quite honest. But I love the film. It's The Social Network. But it's just got words on the front of a face. I mean, come on, you can come out with much more better suited sort of like covers than that. Standard sort of thin paper J card that wraps around it with that stupid sticky tape. But I love The Social Network, so that's great. And then, of course, everybody's favourite that they've been talking about this week, that if you're a Doctor Who fan, you've got the Doctor Who, the collection season 7. I mean, just look at this. It's a behemoth of a box set. It's gorgeous. Just look at that painted art there with the first appearance of the Doctor, the monsters that he appeared in this show, just all here, with a Nestorine egg. All the details on the back. Hopefully you can pause that and see that. Hopefully the quality is good enough. And then I've got a little bit of a story about this. I went to World of Books. I spoke to Denny and told him about books I'd bought that I'd borrowed in the past. When I was working for Alex Lorry, Lloyd's Bank, Alex Lorry was a factoring firm. There was a guy there that loved TV stuff. In the 90s, we were all introduced to the shows being shown again on BBC Two at 6 o'clock. And he lent me this book. And I thought I'd never get that book again because when I borrowed it, I had to give it him back. And then when I went to get it, it was out of stock. Never thought about it again. 20 years later, I'm having a conversation with Denny. No, it's 30 years later. I'm having a conversation with Denny saying, I can't even remember who the book was by. Looked at World of Books. There it was. Fantastic television by Gary Girardi and Paul H. Schumann. The reason I love this book was not only was it packed with stuff, but it also did an episode guide. So let me see if I can show you what I mean by an episode guide. Here we are, the Twilight Zone. My favourite thing to talk about, the Twilight Zone, right? When you get to the episode guide, which is several pages in, you'll see that it's very, very brief with what it talks about, but it's enough for you to go, right, I know what that is. And it does it for every single episode. And this thing covers Kolchak the Night Stalker, Rod Serling's Night Gallery, The Prisoner, The Invaders, Star Trek. Look at it. Absolutely fantastic. And that is the blog. Thank you so much for watching. I am now going to go to the hospital to see my mum. Wish me well, please. And have a few prayers for my mum. Don't care about me. I'll be all right. But these are the moments where I'm tied on doing stuff for other people, doing stuff for my family. I hope I've done the right thing, and I'll update you as soon as I possibly can. And with that, I'll say salute. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let's hope it gets some likes, and I haven't worried you too much. And hopefully the sound is better. It's going into the red, guys. It is. Thank you so much. Bye-bye until next week.